creating the world we're now living in. We are competing in. We are repeating in. We are believing in. It's time for us to shift our mind from best in the world to best for the world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. It creates a new world to mind a shift, intentionality, perceptuality, conceptuality. We are choosing to shift our mind to best for the world, best for our world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional.
Hej och välkommen till den här programpunkten som kommer handla om Digilog Transformation.
It's in English, Richard.
It's
English.
Sorry, thank you for So, hi and welcome to this program point that is about Digilog Transformation. We'll talk a little bit about the past experiences, what is happening right now, and the outlook coming into the future here. So, with me tonight, I have myself, Rickard Lundgren from To Change World. I have Stellan Nordahl, as you might have seen in other program points during the weekend here. Also with my fiancée, Victoria Samson.
Yes, hi.
And our 3-month-old son, Noah. So welcome to all of you and welcome to the audience. Thank you. So, Stellan, this has been quite a journey, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We have had a super interesting journey together with Digilog Transformation, and for me at least it started when we set up this Best for the World broadcast 3 years ago in when the pandemic started, and we realized that this was a solution for instance the Swedish democratic festival called Almedalsveckan, which was actually closed down the first year of the pandemic, which I would say was quite unnecessary, as we really need those democratic dialogues and maybe even more when we have a lot of things going on in the world. So for me it's all started there. I don't know exactly when this platform came in, which we tested last year, but I think it was when we met with Almedalsveckan and had this workshop around how can we connect the digital and the physical realm. I think that was when you met the other ones who have been part of this platform and what should I say, develop it. Isn't that right, Rickard?
Yeah, definitely. The thing is that this has been in the making for many years, and actually everything got accentuated with the help of the pandemic. So I choose to see it as the help of the pandemic that we experienced the past couple of years, because it helped our entire society actually to transform their thinking and our thinking of what's possible to do. And the fun thing here is that many people I worked with and been in my surroundings complained in the beginning that they lost their social touch and they felt a little bit isolated at home and so on. That was during the first year of the pandemic. The second year of the pandemic, these people were kind of like, it's kind of nice. I think it's much more efficient and effective to jump between meetings, and I can work with colleagues in Malmö as well as in Luleå or other parts of the world without any big effort. And once we started to go to the office physically again, you could see that many people just realized the benefits also of combining these two worlds, of having this physical meeting, but also having this meeting via digital channels. So it all started, it didn't start really, but it was a good example and a good test platform to use this festival called Almedalen as the focus area to begin with.
Yeah, and
because we
yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Continue.
we include a lot of people there from various parts of the society, from companies, from non-profits, from the political arenas, and also civilians that are taking a general interest into the society's development.
Yeah, and I can fill in a little bit because this platform which we are talking about was, I would say, when does a development start? Is that when the idea comes, or is it when you meet the right people, or is it when you do the first coding? Or and this specific workshop we were hosting together with Almedalsveckan was about how can we find new ways of not when we connected the physical and the digital world. I mean, this is something I believe many have experienced, is that you called it hybrid, and what happened was that there were one part of the meeting was ordinary meeting with ordinary. When I say ordinary, I mean that the participants were there on like the physical. The criteria for a physical meeting, and then you had someone on a TV screen, which was a second level of participants, and so what we wanted to do was to get more equal platform. And the first, well, I would say the first experience I had of an equal platform was when we used Zoom with every participant had their own sound and their own digital connection, even if they were in the same physical room. So what we did that point was we went to Visby, a couple of us. We met up with Almedalsveckan's people there, and we were 15 people, I think, in a big physical room, and everyone was sitting there with their own little either iPad, computer, or telephone, and their headphones, and on top of that they had like closing out the rest of the sound, so you could actually make breakout rooms. You could do anything that you could do in the digital world, but we did it physically together. And that was when I believe you met with the other people around this new platform you developed, and the ideas at least. I don't know if you attended that workshop, but I think Nikita was, and that's what's my story into it, and I believe it's a very beautiful story when Nikita and you came in with the ideas of how can this be done in a Digilog platform instead of using a digital platform.
Yeah, and this is so interesting. We're talking about the transformation here, and even in this small setup between you and us, in this case, we could see that at that point you were so up into how it's supposed to be done and how we're supposed to meet. So it was not clear that we should do it like that in the beginning. But after a while, we started to grind it down a little bit and to narrow it down to see what are the benefits of this. We started to come to a common conclusion that this is probably the way to go in the future, from now on and into the future.
Yeah. And for those people who don't really know what the Digilog word means, is that we use the digital possibilities and the experience of being on an equal physical, almost at least physical experience. We and that can be done in many ways. One of the things that you introduced me to, which I didn't had any experience of beforehand, was the spatial sound, which was very interesting in itself.
Yeah. So actually, if you look at it, it's all boils down to the thing of making it real, to making it feel real, because then it is real. So we encountered and still encounter a lot of these expressions where this isn't really real, that if we have a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting or something like that, there's often sayings like, okay, so when we meet in real life, for instance, or IRL, like in real life, what that actually means is that this isn't real.
I understand. This is so odd. I don't know how many times I've met people who say, "Oh, thank you for this is the first time we meet." No, we have met before. No, we haven't. Yes, we have in Zoom or in Teams, or
Yeah.
but it's not counted. That is very odd, actually, because I know that I attended the same meeting as this person. I had it in my calendar. I had it. It took time from my day-to-day work, and
Yeah.
why shouldn't we value that kind of a setup?
Yeah.
For me, yeah, it's very strange.
So I started making some notes here because I see there are different lines or narratives here that needs to be combined in this sense. And this IRL thing, let's just jump back for a quick moment here and realize that the Digilog transformation is really about getting from purely analog, which is excluding everybody that isn't in the same room really when things are happening, into using digital means to connect to each other, but that traditionally has meant a two-dimensional picture on a screen,
like this one,
meeting,
the one we have now.
and you get and you get mentally tired of this because you see yourself sometimes. You can hear, and you need to visualize and do this mental picture of things that is tiring really in another sense that we haven't experienced before. But if you combine those things, then the analog and digital ways of meeting, it's just actually ways of meeting, means of communication, and that turns into the Digilog transformation, really, where we can meet irrespective of the channel in that sense.
And so this workshop I was referring to was in autumn 2000. Let's say it must be 21, yeah. And
Yes,
and then you had a very intense development, I guess, because already in the Best Foldable broadcast the year after, I mean, this is in end of March 2022, a year ago, we test bedded it, and we used it in this setup, and we used it for the first time in a live broadcast, which I believe was. Yeah, we had to think of how do we do this, because when you use a platform like that and we wanted it to be streamed, then again we go into some kind of a spatial experience, but what we stream is a two-dimensional screen again. So we went from a 3D to a 2D to a 3D back to a 2D. So it's very interesting in itself.
With the ingredient that the audience, the ones listening, could actually join into the meeting in real time, and that hasn't been possible before. More than in a chat room or like writing in that sense.
Yeah, and someone actually did. I remember that from last spring, that we had a person. Still don't know who it was because that person used some kind of alias for this avatar in the platform, and I still don't know who it is. So at that point I might be saying I didn't know at least that I met you before when we meet physically or when we meet it digitally next time, and that person maybe say, I was part of that Digilog transformation journey. I will never say we haven't met before, at least.
No, exactly, and that goes into this IRL thing in real life, and I will come back to that now because it's actually our own fault that we're using that expression, because the part of making a true Digilog transformation means that it will make it so easy to use, and so with the feeling that it's real, that it's actually real, and you're having this fully fledged meeting experience with other people, and you will never be able to say we didn't meet for real afterwards.
No.
Irrespective if you were doing physical channeling into the meeting or the digital or digital channel into the meeting, which turned it into a Digilog version.
I really believe that this is one of the ways to look at it, and the other one is actually to change the way we look at it in a whole, and maybe use another terminology. I mean, why don't the other person value a meeting with me on the same level as I value when I meet them? That is actually rude, I would say. So maybe we should stop being so rude and realize that we have developed technology which makes us more resilient, because a lot of people realized during the pandemic that they didn't have to put themselves into a vehicle 2 hours or 3 hours a day. They could have a productive work life from another place, very often from home. And today, for instance, I'm in a studio in Lomma during those Best Full Way broadcasts, and we have arranged that in my house. So right now I'm sitting in a conversation with you, and at the same time there are people in my house cooking dinner and so on, preparing for Earth Hour a little bit later on today and so on. And I mean, I actually did this already in 2017, but at that point I believe that people looked at me as a little bit strange. Maybe they still do, I don't know, but at least this is quite common today.
Yes, and there's an acceptance to it. So that is one of the driver that will make this possible. But once again, going from the in real life thing that we believe it can't be true into the future. That is pinpointing though the issue of the challenge really of this, and that is the onboarding, to make sure that people are accepting it as a real part of their life. And I've been many years thinking about this challenge really, long before the pandemic, long before having this kind of issues with being tired in front of the screen and so on. And that is because I've been part of a community who has always been traveling and has always been working a lot from a distance, so to speak. And that means that I needed to find some examples of where are we good at onboarding people in very complex systems in a very short amount of time. Because communication, it might seem easy, but it's actually very complicated, to be honest. That's one of our pinnacles of the human society, that we can communicate at all together in written form, orally or verbally, and so on. So where I want to aim is, and why I say it's our own fault, is that I see the gaming industry as an excellent starting point on how to help people wanting to learn something very fast and coming in on being onboarded into very complex systems very fast. And we also had the issue of having most people being in the analog mindset, that it's only worth something if we can meet physically, in this sense. But now with those mindsets, together with a pandemic, all of a sudden, if we combine those things and make this experience much more seamless, that will help people to onboard and make it real into their life, really, to have real and purposeful and meaningful meetings with each other, which
Definitely.
also includes a lot of people, a lot more people than just the physical room.
Definitely, and you can include people. For instance, when we talk about Almedalsveckan, which I believe is a perfect example in many ways, because the common how can I say it? The common way of looking at Almedalsveckan is that it's an exclusive arrangement for politicians. Very often they talk about politicians. For me, it's like, there is where the whole society meets. It's the NGOs, the businesses, the people who are interested in transformation of society, organizations, and personal development and so on. And of course there are politicians and all the governments and so on. So they are meeting in a joint place once a year for 50 years in a row. And so it's a fantastic arena for conversations, dialogues, and developing ideas together. But that picture of Almedalsveckan isn't the common picture of it. So the common picture is more like it's politicians and it's the elite or something like that. So when we have such a picture of something, way of looking at something, it also creates itself. So that means a lot of people don't go there because they believe they don't belong there. And that is so wrong. And by this, we can actually, with the Digilog platforms, the Digilog thinking, and the Digilog transformation, we can now engage young people, for instance, in a much larger scale than we were ever able to do when we only I would say met physically, because that's how I look at it today, that it's a part of the truth only to meet physical.
Yeah, definitely. And what you're saying really is that we're merging the analog and the digital together, and that's the transformation we're doing to become Digilog, which makes it real and it happens in real time. So you will be able to talk, if you join via digital channels, you will be able to talk and interact with the people in the physical room and vice versa. This makes it real, this makes it relevant, and this makes it meaningful. And in the end, this leads on to another aspect of this that we haven't touched upon so far in this discussion, but I think is one of the key points really with having this kind of including mindset when it comes to meetings and to involve people in the development. And that is the point of health issues, health related issues that is connected to this. Imagine having a person sitting for 2 years in the pandemic, not believing that it is not real, the meetings that you have with your colleagues. You're living at home, you're very isolated, and what does that do with your mental state and your subsequent maybe health issues in terms of this, of depression or maybe different kind of issues that you can encounter with this one. So I think it's of uttermost importance that we actually solve these issues together in order to help people feel the meaningfulness.
Definitely.
And that is also connected to the gaming community, which if you ask somebody that started gaming like in the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s or something like that, you will hear from almost all of them that they developed relationships with people, they had friendships, they have even crushes with people, and they haven't met physically. And that doesn't mean that it's not real.
No, it could even be more crisp and more real than
Exactly.
when you have to show up in maybe you have to pretend to be someone, or when you go to the workplace, maybe you not only the workplace, I mean any social context, you're measured by what people see and not of who you are. And I believe that it's much easier for people to become themselves when we use Digilog or even digital tools. And what I would like to say also to add to this is that both the digital and the Digilog world makes it possible to have participatory methods for the meetings. It's a pity that a lot of people have seen both Teams and Zoom calls and stuff like that as one-way communication, as information more or less. It's no wonder that we have this called Zoom fatigue or stuff like that. But that is, I would say, just more of the linear way of communicating instead of using dialogue, participatory methods like art of hosting, open space, world cafes, things like that, which you actually can do extremely easily with both digital and Digilog platforms. Instead of, for instance, when we host a big open space in the physical world, what we need is maybe 10, 15, 20 small rooms for people to meet in. That is set up in half a minute or something in Zoom, and Shong or whatever it says when you go out into breakout rooms and have those meaningful conversations. But that still is, I would say, the other side of what is needed. Not only the tools themselves, but also how do we use participatory design.
And you're pinpointing something very important. This tools should not be visible or being felt in this case. It should be something that just works around this. That is the conveyor of or actually enabling you to have these meetings. So the Digilog transformation, if you boil it down, means that we are including and we are inviting both the physical meeting as well as the ones that want to connect to it via digital means and make it real for both parties.
For both parties,
so it's not about excluding the physical room and saying that we should all work in the distance, or that the physical meeting doesn't have value. It has a lot of value. It has very, very deep intrinsic value for us human beings. We're made like that.
Yeah, we shouldn't
But
stop
that's not
saying that we had a great meeting when we met physically. We shouldn't end up saying, I haven't seen you, but we met on the grocery store. Yeah, but that was just physical. Now I meet you digitally. Hopefully we won't end up there, because that wouldn't be relevant. But it's fun to make such a joke, because that is what we actually do right now with the Zoom calls. We call them not valid, or call them non-value creating, or whatever we call it, when we say we haven't met. Yes, we have. No, not physically, but yeah, but.
So my natural inclination when it comes to this, when finding issues, it's to find the solutions directly afterwards, because the issues and problems we will always find everywhere. And if we stop there, we will only pile up the problems and issues. So what should we do instead in this case? Why shouldn't, if we can't use the term IRL, which means in real life, that the gaming industry used for a long time before this new Digilog thing
wasn't it like, if you wanted to go away from keyboard, then you had AFK? Isn't that more relevant?
Definitely, and that's what I'm aiming at. So instead of IRL, we're meaning to meet physically. We can use the term AFK in that sense, if we want to have a term for it, which means away from keyboard. And it means.
Sorry, I was spoiling your your one line.
It's really where I wanted to go, because it implies that if you're away from keyboard, that means that you don't have the digital interface in between you and the other person you're meeting. But that it doesn't say anything really about the validity of your meeting.
No, and that is also interesting, because when we talk about physical meetings, I've been to plenty of those physical meetings where people actually zoom out, because they are fully all of their attention to, for instance, something in the palm. They have a iPhone or a smartphone in the hand, and they are engaging in social discussions on the platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, or whatever, and that's maybe okay, but don't trick me saying that is more real. Then AFK is actually a better version, because then you put away the technology and interact with the humans present on that place. I mean, I truly believe in those community platforms. I really do, and I love to use them. I also love to develop new aspects of it, and explore how can we engage more participatory in it and engage ourselves and others. But at the same time, I've been to physical meetings which I believe are zooming out much more than any conversation I've had in a digital world.
Yeah, we're humans. And once we start realizing that and cater for that in our meetings, and make sure that we give ourselves the best possible means and opportunities to have a good meeting, and a great meeting even, then we're onto something really. You can say that 100% of the meetings were physical before we had digital or technical means to do otherwise, like the telephone and so on. And we achieved enormous success as a species on this planet with those physical meetings. Now we can have something else in addition to that. We can have something that excels this even further.
Yeah, I really agree here. And what I would like to add to the conversation is that we can say that physical meetings took us so far and so on. But I've been to plenty of physical meetings during the years that are not creating any meaning. They were closed setups with non-including agendas, one-way information, stuff like that. So I believe in liberating structures. I believe in art of hosting. I believe in meaningful conversations and creative meetings where we create stuff together, where we meet as humans. and I would say the platforms, even if it's a physical room, a digital room, or a Digilog room, isn't actually the only aspect of it. It's also the intent, the way of thinking and doing, and so on and so forth. And to add this to the Digilog transformation, which I believe is so interesting here, because I tried it out together with Joikar and plenty of others, both during those Best for the World broadcasts and during Almedalsveckan 2022. I believe we are really into something here as a species, because we can now interact in a, as you say, meaningful way with people all around the world.
What you say now, if we actually look at it, and what makes me look forward, let's put it like this. The first big, huge milestone would be that we have a Digilog meeting like this, where we meet physically, we meet via digital channels and so on in real time, where nobody thinks about the process, about the means of doing this, and starts to zoom out because the content was boring or things like that. So we had the physical replica. Once we reach that point, then that's the baseline of doing better meetings and actually having better meaningful meetings together. So that we don't see it as a hassle. Oh, now it doesn't work, or it doesn't feel right, and so on. But when that is just in the fabrics of our meetings, that would be so.
Yeah, and today I put a lot of how can I say it? My level of engagement in a meeting corresponds to the level of openness in that meeting, and I have very high standards today on what I call a good meeting. And actually 2 weeks ago, I think it is now, I attended a marvelous and fantastic conference. It was called Imagine Summit. It was hosted by Kinova and Högskolan i Kristianstad and Malmö University, and they had an extreme, actually, to use that word, participatory design of that day, and I have very high standards concerning meetings and conferences and so on, and I would this is one of the maybe 5 top during my last 10-15 years or something. I was so impressed, because we very often do maybe this in a workshop, or we do it with 5-10 people. So they did it with 130 people, and everyone were contributing to what the outcome. Everyone was engaging in the methodology. Everyone was part of creating solutions and exploring their own ways of doing things. And again, they made it in a physical room with 130 people. I would say Digilog would be a way forward here. I mean, to even find 130 people willing to do this is much easier on a global scale than on a very local scale. But hopefully we will all be having high standards on meetings in the future, or hopefully already tomorrow. And that means a future for Digilog platforms, I would say.
Yeah. So if you look at that, and it's a little bit outside of this topic really, but if you look at the content here, the vast majority of studies made on meetings and their benefits to the organizations and to the people joining them show that most meetings are unnecessary or not done properly, and just waste time unnecessarily. So, but let's not go into that.
We call it really bullshit work and bullshit. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a lot of improvement there as well. However, I would like to ask you for just a couple of minutes to share the insights of the past 1.5 year, where we've been working on our demo Digilog World, as well as our looking into the future a little bit on where this is going. Is that fine with you?
Yeah. Should I start with my biggest insight?
Yes.
Which is a little bit, I would say, unsuspected, because I believe that I would have insights concerning the platforms, and so I did. But the biggest insight was actually how easily everything was done. and how fast everything was developed, and how fast, not fast, but yeah, we can use the word fast, how we actually got people to engage in those ideas, to create them, develop them, test bed them, and then host them, and then invite to them, and then produce. I mean, we have meaningful conversations. We had panel discussions. We had dialogues and stuff in these platforms. Yeah, that was my biggest insight. How fast? I mean, very fast, I would say, from idea to. And actually, almost, I haven't been that close to the development that you have been, but I would say almost without any issues.
Really, really interesting to hear your thoughts about this, Stellan. We've been discussing it in depth in other forums, but this is so interesting to see. And as you say, we've been doing this now for 1.5 years. As a test, it has been really like a test bed for these ideas. And what we could see, and which pinpoints this, is that even though it's far from finished, it's far from as Digilog as we would want it to be. It's a demo kind of setup where you can actually go in, you can experience the world, you can interact with people and so on. And do you remember the time when we stood there and without any direction to anybody, we had people forming circles to talk with each other. They were in the Digilog world. They stood, and not like we're doing in a Teams meeting where everybody's on the screen in a two-dimensional screen, so to speak. We stood with our avatars talking with each other in a circle, and there was another person coming, and naturally we opened up to include that person to the conversation.
Yeah, now it shivers now on my spine here, wow, this is so cool. I remember that specific moment, which I believe was a wow moment for all of us in that had formed that circle, because it was not a part of the plan. It was just something that happened, and something that I would say is very human. We meet to have. To create stories together. We meet to have conversations. We meet to share our ideas and so on. And that was what happened actually in this platform. And for those who don't have ever seen a Digilog platform, one could say it's like if you ever tested a 3D game, or if you've been into some of those creative platforms that are out there, that's how it looks like. And then you control your own avatar with yourself very easily. You do it on a smartphone, you can do it on a computer and so on. And we have this so-called spatial sound, which means that when we are close, we can hear each other good. If we are far away, or believe that we are far away, we can't hear what the other person is saying, so we need to be close. And we can also move together. We can transcend into a new room, and that room could be in a total different realm, and so on. So just for those people who haven't tried it out, I would say it's very close to a physical experience from the point of view as being part of something, or taking part in something, but not as we could touch each other. It's not like that, but the feeling of taking part.
Yeah, we can't touch each other yet in that sense. But and the addition also to nuance that is that it's when it's truly Digilog, it needs to be connected in real time with the physical realm as well. So it should be a replica of each other, really, so that if you're in the physical room, you can still see the avatars, and the avatars can see you and talk and interact with you in the physical room. That makes it Digilog in that sense. Yep. After having this kind of grouping with a circle, we went to the dance floor. Do you remember?
Definitely.
A finale of the discussions we had, and we had some dance music.
This is actually Almedalsveckan in a nutshell, where you meet people from all parts of society. You dance together. You get the opportunity to lay off all of your titles, all of your social status, and you are there as equal human beings dancing on a dance floor. That was what we experienced here in the Digilog version of Almedalsveckan. Yeah.
And we could definitely hear people laughing and joking and running around, jumping and so on. So it really emphasized this in the true meaning of the word, real and meaningful for you as a participant. So, what are my key takeaways and what happened during this?
Sorry, that's my question to you. So your insights and takeaways and sorry, I was so filled up with explaining and talking. Sorry.
After the Almedalen talks we had in 2021, we decided, a couple of people, that let's do this now. Let's try it and make a demo. We're not supposed to create the final solution when it comes to this, but let's start somewhere and start to demo these thoughts that we have regarding the Digilog solution. So what we did during these 1.5 years is to build this part of this world, different setups and different showcases and demo environments. And we had about 20 different focus groups that we invited and experimented with in this to gain insights, to see and to develop even further in what direction we should move this. And 1 year ago, it was in the headlines, and it has been in the headlines during the entire 2022, and even before that. But then it was really in the focus of the news media in the world about Meta, or it's called Facebook before, it's Meta today, and also Microsoft talking about the metaverse. And the metaverse, it's kind of this Digilog solutions, but already then we said that they're not going to succeed if it's going to be like they are presenting it to be. And why is that? Well, for us it's simple. It's because they are having the outlook of creating a digital world, a game more or less, that is a lousy version of the real good games that you find out there with mass multiplayer online role-playing games. They're doing a lousy version of that. They're not looking at this physical realm and the way how you incorporate that in real time with each other. So we predicted that this will not be long-lasting in this format. And during the winter here now in the autumn, they have laid off almost all people working with this, and now we're only talking about AI in the news outlets from these companies. So that doesn't mean that this is dead or that it won't be developed. It's the total opposite. It will be developed in the correct and true angle of this and how to engage people in meaningful meetings together. So what happened is that we developed it, we tested it, and we know now how we would like to continue. However, we also know that there is a huge investment that needs to be done in order to do the first kind of viable.
And this is when I look into the to the camera. Hire you with the money. This is the guy who needs them.
It's not me, it's developers. But anyway,
but
funnel of ideas in making it happen, of course. But anyone that are interested in this, please contact us. Right now, we still have all the things that we've done in past times, so we can definitely demo and have a true and meaningful experience together in that sense. Yes.
Yeah, and I believe that the way you have done it, I mean, I didn't know about those 20 focus groups, but I only knew about one because I was part of that. So I'm very what big work you have put into it. I didn't realize that. Maybe it was because I didn't ask, so to speak. But again, from that specific group I was in, I believe that it was also on our terms. Both you and the other guys involved in this project asked the questions not for your sake, but for our sake. And that's something I would like you to take with you, that you have developed a way of asking questions, not to get the answers you needed, more the questions that were needed for the focus group people. That's how I experienced it, so I want you to take that with you, Rickard. And thank you very much for that. That's not very common, actually.
Thank you very much. So we look forward to see how we can have live broadcasts in different festivals, and how to have afterworks, and how to meet each other when you're in distributed teams and make it feel real, you can order your food inside this world, and it will come show up some pizza or something like that on your front door, and it's connected. It's really connected.
Yeah, I really
Make
like
it real.
that. Really like that. Yeah, super.
Yeah.
Should we wrap this session up and say to ourselves and that don't be afraid of a Digilog world. Maybe not even a digital. See it as another aspect of life. Don't unnecessarily judge or value something, because again, I hope that you have had a great conversation, because I've had it, and I'm telling you, thank you very much for this conversation, Richard. And do that with each other when you have meetings, both in the physical realm and in the digital realm, and hopefully in the future more in Digilog realms, because just being present and say to each other that this was a great meeting, let's do it again, or couldn't we change the agenda so we get more can participate more and be more engaged and so on. So what do you say, Richard? Anything else that you want to add, or?
Let's wrap it up and have meaningful meetings with each other. Make the time count. That's the only thing we can do. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
We are creating the world we're now living in. We are competing in. We are repeating in. We are believing in. It's time for us to shift our mind from best in the world to best for the world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. It creates a new world to mind a shift, intentionality, perceptuality, conceptuality. We are choosing to shift our mind to best for the world, best for our world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional.